Heads up, at time of writing, the 0.9 hadn't quite dropped yet, and even though it has now, I haven't had time to go through it, so none of this will be 0.9 stuff. I'll get to it as soon as I can. Hey guys, I love the line, roll for initiative. It's a magic moment at the table. The tension builds, the players see the monster or don't, or talking to an NPC with more and more aggression building, more and more tension building, and then roll for initiative. It's like a bass drop, like the drum start, like the kick from the solo intro into the main song, right? Back in my OG DC20 video, I mentioned I really liking what I heard about the initiative system and disliking advice that I found online suggesting not to roll. If I don't roll, I don't get to say the line, I don't get the bass drop, I don't get that sweet, sweet moment at the table. And then something happened to me. Something kind of organic. Something I didn't expect. And it forever changed my mind. We were playing one night and we were doing skill challenge type stuff. Topic for a future video, but I found at my tables that skill checks and skill challenges kind of sort of blend together in a weird way. Anyways, we were interacting with some baddies, and one of the players wanted to do something like a check, so they rolled. And then another player wanted to do something, so I did a check for them and they rolled. And then all completely narrated and immersed and in-universe mind. So at that point, I wanted the baddie to make a move, so he did. And then player 3 had a thought, so they did that. And then they asked me, hey, can I do this? And I thought, well, yeah, normally that takes 1 AP, so yeah, you could do that, because you figure you get 4 AP on a turn of combat. And then she said, cool, and she went and she rolled, and it was easiest to resolve as an attack roll rather than a skill. And then by that point, I turned to the 4th player and asked if they wanted to do something so that they didn't feel left out. And then they said sure, and they tried to do stuff, and without prompting, they actually used the 4 AP concept to sort of gauge what they could or couldn't do. They took a cue from my last statement, and so they opted for a couple of actions that would normally fill 4 AP. And then after taking some hits by this point, the baddie needed a chance to respond, so he went ahead and made a move. Plus, it fit the flow of the back and forth that they were having with the baddie just prior. Next, we cycled all the way back to player 1 to check in, since it kind of had been a moment, and so they were sort of the last on the totem pole, or they hadn't moved in a while. And you may have caught on to what happened there, but it was a whole round later before I did. See, we had unknowingly worked ourselves into our own initiative order. Like, it was about round 3-ish where I just leaned back and I said, hey guys, we're basically in initiative order at this point. And they all nodded and said, oh yeah, I guess we are. So we had seamlessly dropped into full-on combat from roleplay and regular gaming without even trying. There was no stopping the action, no break, no withdrawal of our immersion while we stumbled around pulling out dice. Instead, they fished out dice on each of their turns while they needed to roll a check. Instead of memes and jokes and this big gap during the initiative rolling process, the other players off turn were actually intrigued and paying attention. They were watching whoever was acting currently, knowing that it would influence what they did next. Now, that last part is pretty significant for my home game. My players at my home game include 2 meme lords, a husband-wife combo, and their daughter. So there's back and forth, there's inside jokes, there's memes, there's minor family squabbles, you know, the fun, jabby jokes, and all of that is very, very common. And while I love the atmosphere and don't mind it that much, it gets a bit much sometime when it goes and goes and goes, and then all of a sudden we haven't played for 20 minutes. Watching this interaction happen where we went into combat with no distractions was wild to me. I can't say that it was just skipping initiative rolls, but I certainly noticed a difference. Maybe it was something in the air, maybe it was the pizza, maybe they just had their coffee that day, maybe the music was just more on point than ever, whatever the reason. I realized as sweet as that bass drop is, I might be better off without it. Since then, I haven't bothered to roll for initiative at all. I've noticed 99% of the time each player is already doing a roll when combat starts. Example, one guy is usually the first to open the door, one is usually standing back with a bow or scouting or whatever, and one is usually reading a spell or stoking a fire or checking a box in the corner or something. When a bad guy pops out, just have the one who opened the door act first, or have the monster move first by way of introduction, whatever makes the most narrative sense. If the players go first, then give the door opener a turn, and then a baddie, and then the bow user, and then baddie 2, then the firebox checker person, and then another baddie. If in a boss room, I'd give the door opener, bow user, shared initiative, then big bad, and then box checker, spell prepper, etc. I found that if I pull myself out of the dice, it's usually really easy to figure out what makes sense, especially with the tactic of player baddie, player baddie, player baddie sandwich, usable in any system and should be used in every system. But the new 0.9 update news dropped, and it was mentioned in a Discord that each of the stats in DC20 are getting reworked a little bit to have a sort of primary and secondary function. Like, for example, Charisma is passive defense and grit points, Might is passive defense and health, Initiative is active defense and skill points, you see? Of course, the rub for that is that agility was supposed to be active defense and initiative, at least as I understood it anyways. I'm positive if I got this wrong, I'll be corrected below, of which please do. But if I don't roll initiative, then what's the secondary for agility? I mean, do I have to go back to rolling? Which I don't plan to do, to be honest. So I'm not sure about this yet. Editing Tori here. Obviously, now the PDF has dropped. Go check it out, of course, and I will get a chance to later. I swear I just wrote this before it actually came out. The even distribution of the stat uses is awesome, and I love the balance concept, so this is just a reminder to me more than anything that if I homebrew something, I just need to be aware of what it could affect down the line, and more importantly, how do my players feel about it? I mean, my players probably won't care that much, I don't think. We haven't tried the rework yet, obviously, but in general, my players are the bestest, most supportive bunch, and they tell me all the time that they're having fun, and in a pitch, they do defer to me for how I run the rules, which is fantastic. I probably don't give them enough credit, honestly. I mean, I've been told I'm actually a really good DM, but that's mainly because of my players. Like, it's a two-way street. So big shout out to them, my home game group, but also my online groups that I honestly don't talk about nearly as much. Yes, the Misty story is coming sometime. Anywho, share your thoughts below, and I'll see y'all next time.